There's something cruel about hearing the word insufficient from a school administrator, especially when your wallet is empty, your stomach's growling from skipped lunches, and your husband just bought a new watch. Mrs. Morgan, the secretary repeated, flipping through her records. I'm afraid we still haven't received the final tuition payment for Lily and Noah. If we don't get it by the end of the week. I clenched my jaw. Yes. I understand. But I didn't understand. Not really. I didn't understand how, despite working 2 part-time jobs and budgeting every grocery bill to the last cent, we were still falling short. I didn't understand how my husband, Eric, with his decent IT salary, somehow had nothing left every month. I didn't understand when we became me, the one who planned, sacrificed, and explained our shame away with polite smiles and downcast eyes. I walked out of the school office and sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. The air felt thick. It wasn't hot, but I couldn't breathe. The kids were still in class. I had a rare hour before my shift at the bakery. I could have driven home. Rested. But I didn't. Instead, I drove to a strip mall 10 minutes away, not to shop, but to cry in the parking lot behind a laundromat where no one knew my name. I know that sounds dramatic. But unless you've had to calculate whether to pay the electric bill or buy your child a winter coat, you won't understand the weight of pretending things are fine when they're crumbling. When I got home that night after my shift, Eric was already on the couch, scrolling through his phone like nothing in the world required urgency. The kids were upstairs. I could hear them giggling over some tablet game. I stood in the doorway, my apron still on, my hands sticky with dried frosting and fatigue. Did you see the notice from the school? I asked. He looked up briefly, then back down. What notice? They're threatening to drop Lily and Noah from their classes if we don't pay the remaining tuition. He sighed. Again? I stared. Again? You knew this was coming. He shrugged. It's a private school, Jess. Maybe it's time we move them somewhere less expensive. We've been paying the same amount for 3 years. The only thing that's changed is you stopped contributing your share. He looked annoyed now. That's not fair. What's not fair is me working until 10 p.m. piping buttercream roses onto overpriced cakes while you sit here and pretend we're not drowning. Eric stood, his voice sharp. I'm doing what I can. I narrowed my eyes. Then where is the money going, Eric? Silence. His jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. That was the first crack. Small. Almost invisible. But I felt it, like a splinter beneath the skin. He walked past me without another word and disappeared into the garage. That night, I checked our bank statements while he slept. It wasn't hard. I'd set up the accounts years ago. Eric had never changed the login. And that's when I saw it. Regular transfers. Same amount. Same day each month. $1,000. Labeled simply, family. I stared at the screen like it was a punch to the gut. Let me back up. Eric and I met in college. He was smart, a little awkward, but charming in a quiet way. We bonded over our shared love of sci-fi movies and cheap instant ramen. He was the kind of guy who remembered your favorite candy bar, who showed up to class with 2 cups of coffee, one just for you, without asking. We got married young. Too young, maybe. But we made it work. For a while. Then came Lily. Then Noah. Then bills. Mortgages. Grown-up things that don't come with instruction manuals. At first, Eric was reliable. He worked long hours. He helped with the kids. We didn't have much, but we had us. But somewhere between year 6 and year 10, he started drifting. Not physically, he still came home every night. But emotionally, financially. He wasn't present. I blamed stress. Burnout. I told myself marriage has seasons. I was patient. But sitting in the dark that night, the blue glow of the computer screen illuminating my husband's betrayal, I felt something shift in me. He hadn't lost interest. He had redirected it to someone else. I confronted him the next morning after the kids left for school. I didn't wait for him to make coffee. Didn't smile. Didn't soften my tone. I know you've been sending money to your mother, I said. His head snapped up like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. I saw the statements. $1,000 a month. That's $10,000 a year, Eric. While I've been rationing shampoo. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. It's not what you think. Then explain it. She needed help. Dad's pension ran out. Her roof was leaking. Medical bills. We have bills too. I exploded. Our daughter needs braces. Noah's been asking why he can't join soccer like his friends. And you're funding a second household behind my back. He looked ashamed, but not enough. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd react like this. No, I said, my voice cold. You didn't tell me because you knew it was wrong. He reached for me. Jess, come on. I stepped back. You lied to me. Repeatedly. And not just with words, with every choice you made behind my back. He rubbed his temples. I'm trying to do right by everyone. You're failing all of us, I said. He didn't respond. And in that silence, something inside me began to harden. The next week was war, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet and sharp. We coexisted like roommates. We spoke only when necessary. The kids noticed, of course. Lily asked if we were mad at each other. I lied. Just tired, baby. Meanwhile, I called the school and begged for an extension. I picked up extra shifts. I sold some old jewelry online. And every time I saw Eric, I saw the betrayal etched into the corners of his eyes. He didn't apologize. Worse, he kept sending the money. One day, I came home early from work. The bakery's oven had broken, so they sent us home. I walked into the kitchen just as Eric ended a phone call. He didn't hear me come in. She's being difficult, he was saying. But I'll keep sending it. Just, please don't say anything to Jess. I froze. A voice on speakerphone crackled, his mother. She doesn't need to know everything, sweetheart. I raised you better than that. I turned and left before I threw something. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I had a choice. I could keep enduring this, shrinking, sacrificing, surviving. Or I could reclaim something. My voice. My dignity. My future. I didn't know what that meant yet. But I knew the version of me that kept forgiving without change. She was gone. There's a moment in every marriage where the silence becomes its own language. Where you stop asking questions you know won't be answered. And your partner stops offering explanations they know you won't believe. That's where Eric and I were now. I didn't bring up the phone call. He didn't mention the money. And our house, once full of noisy dinners, messy laughter, late-night whispered dreams, became quiet. Uncomfortably, terrifyingly quiet. Lily and Noah, sensing the shift, tiptoed around us like we were a pair of sleeping beasts. They stopped asking for extra snacks, for field trip forms, even for bedtime stories. Noah once whispered, "Is Daddy mad at you?" I lied again. "No, sweetheart. Just busy." But I wasn't busy. I was awake at 2 a.m. every night, sitting in the dark, calculating and recalculating numbers in my head. Wondering how $1,000 a month could feel like a wrecking ball to a life I spent years trying to build. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I made a choice. I booked a consultation with a divorce attorney. Not because I was ready. Not even because I wanted to. But because I needed to know. What would it cost me to leave? What would it cost me to stay? The office was in a small plaza next to a dental clinic. The kind of nondescript building you could walk past every day and never notice. The attorney, a woman named Tara Lyle, had kind eyes and a sharper voice. She didn't sugarcoat. "You've been married 13 years, 2 kids, 1 working spouse. On paper, it's a standard case. But the emotional toll," she stopped, tapping the folder I brought. "That's the real weight here." "I don't want to destroy him," I said. "You won't. He's doing that just fine on his own." That line stayed with me the rest of the day. When I got home, I found Eric in the garage, fiddling with a tool set he rarely used. He didn't look up when I walked in. "We need to talk," I said. Still, he kept his eyes on the wrench in his hand. "If it's about the money." "It's about the marriage," I cut in. "Which, let's be honest, is hanging by a thread." He finally looked at me. And in that moment, I saw fear flicker in his eyes, real fear. "I went to see a lawyer," I continued. "Not because I want to divorce you. But because I needed to understand what I'm fighting for." Eric set the wrench down carefully. "Jess. No. Listen. I've carried this family for years. I've worked, I've saved, I've sacrificed. And you chose to prioritize someone else. Repeatedly. She's my mother," he said quietly. "And I'm your wife. They're your children. Do you realize I haven't bought myself new clothes in 2 years? That I skipped lunch for weeks to pay for Lily's textbooks?" He flinched. I pushed forward. "This isn't just about money. It's about loyalty. About trust. And right now, you're not just bankrupting our bank account, you're bankrupting us." He sank onto the workbench, head in his hands. "I didn't know how to tell you. She's been guilt-tripping me for years. Saying Dad wouldn't want her to be alone. That I was all she had left. And I was what?" I snapped. "The side quest? The afterthought?" He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. The next morning, I found a folded piece of paper on the kitchen counter. It was a letter. Handwritten. From Eric. "Jess. I know I failed you. I know I've been absent, silent, selfish. The truth is, I didn't know how to be a son and a husband. I thought I could juggle both. I was wrong. I've canceled the transfers. I told my mom the truth, that it's hurting my family. That it has to stop. I know this doesn't fix anything. But I want to try. Please don't give up on me." I stared at the paper for a long time. Then I tore it in half. Not out of hatred, but because it wasn't enough. Words were cheap. What I needed was action. That week, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a day off. I asked my friend Chelsea to watch the kids. Packed a tote bag. Drove an hour out of town to a lake we used to visit when we were newlyweds, when things were simpler. I sat on a bench by the water, feeling the wind brush my hair, watching families laugh, children run, teenagers splash their feet off the dock. And I realized something heartbreaking. I didn't miss Eric. I missed who I thought he was. That night, I came home to a clean house, folded laundry, and a note on the fridge that said, "Dinner's ready. Thought you deserved a break." It was his way of trying. Of showing. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. A few days later, I called his mother. I'd never done that before, not alone. She sounded surprised. "Jessica? I know you've been taking money from Eric," I said bluntly. "And I know you've been manipulating him. But that ends now." Silence. "I'm not asking for your permission. I'm telling you. If you love your son, really love him, you'll stop asking him to choose between his family and his wife." Her voice was cold. "I didn't raise him to abandon blood." "No," I said. "You raised him to abandon responsibility." And I hung up. That night, Eric looked at me across the dinner table. Lily was chatting about a class project. Noah was dipping carrots in ketchup like a madman. And for once, our house didn't feel so fragile. "Did you call my mom?" he asked quietly. "Yes." He didn't seem angry. Just relieved. "What did you say?" "I told her the truth." He nodded slowly. "I'm trying, Jess. I really am." "I know," I said. "But trying has an expiration date." His eyes filled with something like regret. "Or understanding. Then I'll prove it before time runs out." That weekend, Eric withdrew money from his savings account and handed me an envelope. "Use it for the kids' school," he said. "All of it. No more secrets." I took it, but I said nothing. Because forgiveness is earned, not bought. And though he was finally stepping up, part of me still feared it was too late. But for now, we were moving. Not forward. Not backward. Just moving. And sometimes, that's enough. When someone breaks your trust, they don't just steal your peace, they shatter your compass. Even after apologies, even after gestures, you find yourself second-guessing everything. Every smile. Every receipt. Every late night. That was me now. Eric had made the first move. He'd canceled the money transfers. Given me the savings. Cleaned, cooked, showed up. And yet, when he looked at his phone and turned the screen away, my stomach tightened. When he was late picking up Noah, I imagined he was with her again, not another woman, but his mother, his first allegiance. When he kissed my cheek and said, "I love you," I wanted to believe it. But part of me whispered, "Do you love me more than your guilt? Or just less than your shame?" Forgiveness is a slow burn. And I was still raw. A month after the shift, things felt calmer. We made the school payment on time. Eric picked up more freelance work. He even helped Lily with her science fair project, a cardboard volcano that somehow exploded red glitter all over our dining table. The kids were smiling again. Noah even drew a picture of the four of us, holding hands, under a banner that read, "My family is good again." I nearly cried when I saw it. Because that's what I wanted, too. To believe the fracture had healed. But a healed bone is never quite the same. It's stronger in some places. More fragile in others. Then came the call. I was sorting laundry on a Wednesday afternoon when Eric's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He was upstairs bathing Noah. Normally, I wouldn't have touched it. But the screen flashed, "Mom." And before I could stop myself, I picked it up. "Eric?" "No," I said coldly. "It's Jessica." Silence. Then her voice, clipped and dry. "Tell him his cousin's in the hospital. It's urgent. He'll know what to do." Click. I stared at the phone for a long time. She hadn't asked how I was. Hadn't said thank you for the last call. She was still treating me like a wall between her and her son. Eric came down a few minutes later, Noah wrapped in a towel like a tiny burrito. "She called," I said flatly. His face fell. "What did she say?" "Something about a cousin in the hospital." He nodded, rubbing his temple. "That's Jordan. Got into a car accident. He doesn't have insurance." I crossed my arms. "And what exactly does that have to do with you?" Eric looked up, tired, resigned. "She's asking if I can help." I took a breath. "Are you?" He paused. Too long. "Jess, he's family. I can't just ignore it." "And what about us? What about your actual family, your wife, your kids, the ones who eat cereal for dinner so you can keep peace with your mother?" He winced. "It's a one-time thing." I shook my head, stepping back. "That's what you said last time. And the time before that." Eric opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't argue. Because there was nothing left to defend. That night, we fought. Quietly. Fiercely. In whispers and sharp looks while the kids slept upstairs. "I'm trying to rebuild," he said, voice cracking. "But she's still my mother. She raised me. When my dad died, she didn't ask for help from anyone else, just me. And now you're paying for it," I said. "But the currency is us." He looked so torn. So tired. I almost pitied him. But pity doesn't rebuild a marriage. The next morning, I woke up to find the envelope of money I hadn't touched, the remainder of what he gave me for the kids' tuition, gone. In its place was a note. "I'm sorry. I'll pay it back." I had no choice. The words blurred. Not from tears. From rage. He didn't just lie again. He stole. I didn't go to work. Didn't cook breakfast. I packed a bag. Just clothes. Essentials. The kids' toothbrushes. Their favorite pajamas. And when Eric walked through the door that night, sweaty and rushed, he froze at the sight of me by the staircase. "Jess. We're going," I said. "Going where?" "To my sister's. Temporarily. Until I figure out what's left of this." He looked like he'd been slapped. "You're taking the kids. They deserve a mother who doesn't have to beg their father to pick them first." I didn't. Don't say you didn't have a choice. You chose. Again. He stood there, eyes glassy. Then whispered, "Please don't leave me." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But then Lily came down the stairs, clutching her drawing, the one that said, "My family is good again." And something in me cracked. I knelt, held her tight, whispered, "We're just taking a little break, baby." She nodded, but I saw the fear in her eyes. The one kids have when they sense the walls in their world are crumbling. I took Noah's hand. Grabbed my bag. And left. That week was hard. I slept in my sister Rachel's guest room. She didn't pry. Just held me when I cried and fed my kids like they were her own. The kids adjusted quickly, as kids do. But every night, I stared at my phone. Eric didn't call. Didn't text. Until day 6. I messed up. Again. I know I don't deserve it. But I'm ready to fix everything, not with words. With proof. I didn't respond. Not yet. The next day, a package arrived. No return address. Just my name. Inside. A printed cancellation of a money transfer. A notarized document. Eric had removed his mother's access to his accounts. A check. For the full amount he'd taken, plus interest. And a handwritten note. I was afraid of losing her. But I already had. I don't want to lose you too. I'm not asking for one more chance. I'm earning it. That night, I stood on Rachel's porch and stared at the stars. Lily came out quietly. "Is Daddy still in trouble?" I smiled sadly. "A little." She thought about that. "Did you know you're stronger than volcanoes?" I blinked. "What?" "My teacher said volcanoes break apart land. But you held us together when it got all shaky." Tears came fast. And in that moment, I realized something. Even if my marriage didn't survive. Even if Eric and I never found our way back. I had not failed. Because I'd protected my children. I'd found my voice. And I had drawn a line in the sand, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. The first time I went back to our house, it felt like entering someone else's life. The kitchen table still had the glitter stains from Lily's volcano project. The laundry basket by the stairs was half full, like time had paused mid-motion. Eric's shoes were neatly lined up by the door, a habit he never broke, no matter how chaotic our marriage became. I stood in the hallway longer than I should have, clutching the manila folder with the documents he'd sent. Not just proof he'd stopped the money transfers, but a legal declaration stating that all financial decisions going forward would be transparent and require dual consent. It wasn't just paperwork. It was a man trying, for once, to repair damage instead of hiding it. Eric stepped out from the living room when he heard the door. He looked thinner. Tired. His eyes scanned mine like he was afraid I'd vanish again. "You came," he said. "I didn't say I was staying." He nodded slowly. "Fair. I came to talk. That's all." We sat in the kitchen, across from each other like two strangers renegotiating a contract. "I got a second job," he said after a moment. "Remote. Late nights. I'm saving every dollar." I nodded. Noted. I told my mother this is the last boundary she gets to cross. I blocked her number for now. I needed the space. I raised an eyebrow. Did she explode? He smirked weakly. She called me a traitor. Then hung up. Silence settled again. Not angry, just full of things unspoken. Finally, I said, "I don't know if I can trust you yet." Eric didn't flinch. I wouldn't either. That startled me. The honesty of it. He leaned forward. "But I want to earn it back. All of it. The trust, the peace, the family we used to have." I stared at him, heart pounding. "And if I say no?" He swallowed. "Then I'll still do the work. Because it's what I should have done from the beginning." I didn't stay that night. But I didn't walk out in anger either. We agreed on therapy. Couples and individual. We agreed to co-parent without hostility. We agreed that there would be no more secrets, from him or from me. Because truthfully, I'd had them too. Tiny ones. Quiet ones. The growing resentment I never voiced. The days I stopped trying because I didn't believe he'd ever change. The moments I made decisions about our lives without asking, because I assumed I had to carry the whole load. In saving our kids, I'd started to lose us. And I had to own that too. Therapy was uncomfortable. The first session, Eric admitted that he'd felt like a middleman for most of our marriage. Between my mom and Jess, between work and home, between being who I wanted to be and who I thought I had to be. I wanted to scream. But the therapist, a gray-haired woman named Dr. Langford, just nodded and said, "And who taught you that you had to be everything to everyone except yourself?" That question sat in the air like smoke. The next session, it was my turn. "I stopped believing he'd show up," I said. "So I built a life around that. Quietly. Bitterly. And every time he did show up, I questioned it." Dr. Langford asked, "Why?" "Because it hurt less than hoping." We kept going. Week after week. And something shifted. Not overnight. Not with one grand gesture. But gradually. He started packing the kids' lunches without being asked. I stopped triple-checking his receipts. He surprised me with a small bouquet after a hard day. I thanked him, sincerely, without skepticism. One night, I found him asleep on the couch, Noah curled against his chest, cartoons still playing on mute. And I didn't feel rage. I felt something else. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe, faith. Then came the dinner. Eric invited me, just me, to dinner at a small restaurant where we used to go during college. Cheap wine. Table too close to the kitchen. But the memories were thick in the air. We sat in silence for a while, the noise of silverware and background jazz filling the gaps. Then he slid something across the table. A photo. Of Lily and Noah, taken by him at the park the week before. On the back, he'd written, "I don't want to be the man who almost lost this. I want to be the one who fought to earn it back." I looked up. He was shaking. "This isn't a proposal," he said quickly. "It's not a trap. It's just, me, asking to be seen again. And somehow, that made it more honest than any vow renewal or apology could have been. I touched the photo, heart full, eyes wet. "I see you," I whispered. He reached across the table. I took his hand. Not because everything was fixed. Not because I forgot the pain. But because rebuilding isn't about starting over. It's about choosing, again and again, to stay, to try, to believe that some things can be repaired. The next morning, we told the kids Mommy would be moving back home, slowly. Just for weekends at first. Lily jumped. "I knew you still loved each other." Noah asked if that meant Daddy would stop burning pancakes. We laughed. We laughed. And I realized, this time, it didn't feel forced. It felt possible. That night, after the kids were asleep and the dishes were done, I found Eric sitting alone on the back porch. He looked up as I approached. I wrapped my arms around him from behind, resting my chin on his shoulder. "No more envelopes, okay?" I said. "No more secrets," he replied. We stayed like that for a long time, under a sky full of stars neither of us had looked up at in far too long. A year passed. 12 months, 4 seasons, hundreds of small moments that stitched our broken marriage back together, not perfectly, but intentionally. And that, I learned, is the difference between repairing and replacing. You replace something when it's worthless. You repair it when it still has meaning. Eric and I weren't perfect. But we were present. And for a long time, that had been the missing piece. He kept his promises. Every paycheck came into a shared account. He showed up to parent-teacher conferences, cooked on weekends, even volunteered at the school fundraiser dressed as a hot dog. Noah was mortified. I was in love again. We didn't mention his mother often. After the fallout, she stopped reaching out. Once, she sent a birthday card for Noah, late, and signed. I showed it to Eric. He looked at the handwriting, then handed it back without a word. We threw it away. Not out of spite. Out of peace. One Saturday afternoon, I found Eric in the garage reorganizing old boxes. He held up a photo album, one from our early years. Back when we lived in a tiny apartment with mismatched furniture and infinite dreams. "Remember this?" he asked. I sat beside him on the concrete floor, flipping through the pages. Photos of us in college. Our wedding. Lily's birth. Noah's chubby toddler grin. Each image was a timestamp of who we were, who we became, and who we nearly lost. Eric traced his finger over a picture of me asleep on the couch, Lily curled on my chest. "I didn't deserve you," he whispered. I took his hand. "You didn't. But you earned me." That was our new language, truth without cruelty. Later that night, after the kids went to sleep, we sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket. The stars above us were bright and indifferent, like they'd seen millions of stories like ours and still found beauty in the repetition. "Do you ever think about how close we came to ending?" I asked. "Every day." "Does it scare you?" "No," he said. "Because now I know what it takes to stay." I leaned into him. "You know," I said with a soft laugh, "there was a time I considered leaving everything. Not just you. The town. The job. Starting over completely. I wouldn't have blamed you. I would have blamed myself." "Why?" "Because I would have left before seeing what you could become." Eric kissed the top of my head. "I didn't become this man without you." The next morning, Lily ran into our bedroom holding a piece of paper. "Guess what?" she squealed. "I wrote a poem." She cleared her throat with all the drama of a Broadway actress. "My mommy and daddy used to fight. But now they hug me every night. They cook and laugh and play and clean. And I think love lives in between." I blinked fast, pretending something was in my eye. Eric applauded with fake flair. "A masterpiece." Noah popped up behind her with his own version. I drew a dragon, he yelled. Yours is slightly less poetic, I said, laughing. But his dragon had our family drawn inside its wings. Me. Eric. Lily. Him. All smiling. It wasn't just a drawing. It was proof. Months passed. We paid off the tuition. I went back to school part-time to finish the degree I'd abandoned years ago. Eric started teaching coding workshops on the weekends. We turned our spare bedroom into a study nook, where the kids would sprawl across bean bags, asking questions like, what's a metaphor? And do dragons poop? And every night, after stories and giggles and bedtime negotiations, we'd sit in the quiet and look at each other like two survivors, not of war, but of marriage. Because surviving a marriage isn't about avoiding storms. It's about learning how to build a boat together when the floods come. One rainy evening, as I folded laundry and listened to the soft rhythm of Eric playing guitar in the living room, Lily came to me and asked, Mommy, what does love mean? I paused. And then I said the only thing that ever truly made sense. Love means staying when it's easier to leave, and choosing each other all over again.